everyone. This is our 4-H Ag and Hort Afternoon Adventures. It's great to see everyone. Today we've made you panelists so we can actually see videos and see the participants. It's great to see all of you today. We will keep you muted, just again to keep our background noise low. And we are recording this today so we can share this later. If you know of someone who wants to watch this, you can let us know and we can send the recording afterwards. With that, Becca, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, make sure I'm unmuted. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am so glad to see all of your 4-H shirts, especially during our second day of National 4-H Week. Happy 4-H Week to all of you. Let's get started today with our 4-H pledge. If you want to follow along on the screen with me, I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, my health to better living, for my family, my club, my community, my country, and my world. All right, I'll introduce myself. I am Becca Turnquist. I am a 4-H Extension educator in Swift County. And just some reminders for you all today. As Brian said, we have promoted you to panelists so we can see your faces and see your names and see what you have to show us. Some reminders, please keep yourselves on mute. And if you have a question, you can type it in the chat box or in the question and answer option. Please use the chat box to only for questions or comments, and please be respectful as we learn from our guest speakers today and our other staff and other members participating. All right.
Great, thanks Becca. Thanks for leading us in the pledge and those little reminders. Our first speaker today, we've got a 4-H member from Becker County. She's in a new opportunity that we've started this year called the Minnesota Agriculture Ambassadors. And Maren Hoban is on with us today to give us a greeting. So Maren, I'll turn it over to you to give us a little greeting.
Hello everyone, my name is Maren, like Brian said, and I am from Becker County. And my 4-H club is Franklin. And I'm super excited to be with you today and learn what you guys have been learning. 4-H has provided me with so many different opportunities, some of those being I'm a county ambassador for our county, and then also I'm in the new program, which is the state 4-H Ag Ambassador. And then I'm also on our livestock committee. I am the secretary, and then we do so many other things that I'm able to be involved in our county. 4-H has its roots in agriculture, and from growing plants to raising livestock, and it provides youth with so many different opportunities to help grow their knowledge in agriculture, like this 4-H Ag and Hort afternoon that you guys have been doing. Personally, the livestock project areas, especially beef and swine, have been what I have been learning skills from through 4-H, and that's taught me so many different lifelong lessons that I'll be able to take with me into my future. It also, 4-H provides so many different opportunities though, besides livestock projects and agriculture opportunities for youth to learn from and develop those lifelong skills that we'll need. And I'm just super excited to be with you guys today on this 4-H Ag and Hort afternoon adventure. And I'm gonna have a lot of fun learning something new. And I challenge all of you guys to continue learning through 4-H and maybe even getting some of your friends to join. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. It's great to have you part with us today. And just for all you 4-H members, like I said, this is a new opportunity in 4-H. And as you get older, something forward that you could look forward to be one of our Minnesota 4-H Agriculture Ambassadors. So thanks, Martin, for being with us today. Before I turn it over to Nick, I do want to acknowledge some people that have been sharing some of their adventures with us as we've kicked this program off in September. Brady from Pope County has shared some great pictures of apple tasting and salsa making, so I want to thank Brady for his involvement. And then we also have a family from South St. Louis County, and their names are Era, Deza, and Giselle. So thank you all for participating and sharing with us some of your pictures of what you've been doing, either salsa making or vegetable storage or apple tasting. So thanks for doing that. So with that, oh, one more thing. I don't know, again, I'm going to show, I'm kind of proud of my sweet potato plant I've got growing. So here it is one more time. I don't know if any of you remember it from our first meeting. It was pretty small and I had probably one shoot out, but look at the roots I've got developed just within about 3 weeks. And the plant on top is really growing. So we'll see, and we'll see how it's growing maybe in our November one. So with that, Nick, I'm going to turn over to you for our activity and another guest speaker.
All right, well, my name is Nick Podall, and I'm the 4-H educator in Cass County, which is Walker, Pine River area up in kind of north central Minnesota. So my activity today is around harvest, and we're going to be looking at pumpkins. So I asked if you guys would have, if you have participated in the activity, a pumpkin or some type of squash or a gourd or something like that. And I've got mine here, and I've already cut it. And if you have a pumpkin, what you'll want to do is take a cutting board and actually cut it this way, and not across the middle like this on a pumpkin. It's just a little bit harder to cut it that way, and you cut it off center. Now, if you have a squash though, that especially like a buttercup squash that's short and squat, and so it makes it really hard to cut it sideways like this. So then you'll want to cut that one across the middle. So if you guys want to take your squash, and if you have an adult there with a knife, you can cut it across the middle. And I'll give you kind of a few seconds to do that. I'm just kind of looking at you guys' cameras now, if you're, just so I can kind of see if any of you are doing that. Okay, good. We got one that's cut there. Perfect. All right, so yeah, when you cut it open, it's going to look something like this. And there's going to be a whole bunch of seeds in there, right? All right, so when you're looking at, when you want to take out the seeds, now you can kind of scoop it out with a spoon if you want to, but then you're going to get a whole bunch of pulp and stuff with it. So I kind of like to just use my fingers. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate this to you, and I kind of have to move my camera around so you guys can see. Okay, so I've got this above here right now, and if you reach your fingers in towards the center of the squash or the pumpkin, and you just kind of grab this seed cavity here, and then you kind of reach in and pull back against the side of it. And try to get my camera in here a little bit, okay? And you pull back against the side, and you can kind of see all the seeds that pop out of there. And you can kind of, you know, get the strings and stuff in between your fingers, and then you should be able to pull the seeds out pretty clean. And then if you've got a like a colander or something like that, you can kind of drop those in there, and you can kind of dig your seeds out. So I'll give you a few minutes to kind of dig some seeds out and drop them in a container there that you've got. And you can kind of see I'm pulling some more out. But if you start in the center and then pull back towards the outside of the pumpkin and just kind of rake them up the side of the pumpkin and then squeeze those strings out in between your fingers, you'll get a few strings and stuff, but we'll kind of show in the next step how you rinse those out. So I'll give you a few minutes to kind of pull some more seeds out, and I'll pull a few more out of mine here too.
Nick, this is a great messy activity you've got going today.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
So what are we doing?
So we're harvesting some seeds from either a pumpkin or a squash or some type of gourd. So these would be if you want to save these seeds to be able to plant them next year. And just a quick word about that. If you have seed from a pumpkin that you've bought, you'll want to know if you can save it to plant next year. You'll want to know whether or not it's going to be, whether it's a hybrid variety or whether it's an open pollinated variety. And the difference is that the hybrid variety has less genetic diversity, in short. And so sometimes when you plant hybrid varieties back, if you save the seed from them, the plant that you end up getting or the fruit that you end up getting won't look like the one that you pulled the seed out of. In other words, they don't come back true. And so if you have an open pollinated variety, you should be able to get seed back out of it that will come back true to what the fruit that you pulled it out of. So as long as it was grown in a place where it wasn't cross-pollinated with other things, and there's some other factors there. But basically, you can plant back any viable seed. And even if it is a hybrid variety, sometimes it's fun if you're not too concerned about what you're going to get, unless you really want something specific. Sometimes it's fun to plant them back and then see what happens. You might get a whole smattering of different things. And actually, it can be kind of fun because then you might find something different that you like, and then you could save seed just from that. And you could plant that back and maybe start a different variety. So that's always a possibility as well. It's kind of fun.
So Nick, just before I ask the question that's in the chat, if you don't have a pumpkin or a squash or a gourd with you today, you can do this later too. So don't worry if you don't have that with you today. Just watch what Nick is showing you and you can do that later after this. But there is a question in the chat, Nick. Can I use this small pumpkin?
Yep.
If you ask that question, if you want to hold up your pumpkin in your camera so we can see what small pumpkin maybe you were talking about.
I don't have a pumpkin, but I have some kind of squash.
Perfect. Yep.
It's called
Absolutely.
a spaghetti squash.
Yeah, that works great too. Yep.
Here's the small pumpkin.
Yep. That'll work. And you got it cut open there.
Everyone has a pumpkin.
You can pull the seed out. And when you're pulling the seed out too, when you feel them in between your fingers, if it feels nice and hard and plump, that's going to be a good viable seed that you're going to be able to save. If you've got sort of if you get kind of one that's a little bit soft and floppy and not very full, you're going to see some of those too in there probably. And those seeds aren't going to be ones that you're going to be able to plant back. They're not mature enough, and they're not going to keep, and they wouldn't grow a plant back anyway. So there will be some of those seeds in there, and you can kind of see, here's one that's on the end of some string and stuff, and you'll get a few of those. So those are ones that you'll want to not put in your bowl that you're saving if you can. Otherwise, you can kind of rinse them out later. If you do a big grab and just pull all the strings out, you'll be able to rinse those out. So I see you guys are working on pulling them out. You know, if you're not gonna, there's lots of seed in a pumpkin or a squash, or probably more than you're going to be able to plant back in the size of garden that you have. There's usually hundreds of seeds inside one of these. So you know, you don't always have to save the whole thing and stuff either.
I don't know how much I have in mine.
The seeds that I have in mine they're so small that it looks like there's like a little seed army.
Mm-hmm. And they all look like, and usually that's kind of how it works with squash and pumpkins too, is that the smaller the pumpkin is, or the squash, the seed kind of looks the same, right? But usually the smaller the seed is going to be too, if the fruit is smaller. All right, so I've got a lot of things dug out here. And if you put them inside a bowl like this, a colander, that you'll be able to run some water through it. If you take it to your sink and run some water to it, if you've got like a spray function on your faucet, that's nice too.
These are mine.
There you go. Those are really nice and clean. They look good. So
I
you
didn't
want to
even
do,
wash them yet.
yeah, that looks great. The less stuff that you've got on them to rinse off, the better. That'll make a lot less work for you in the end. So if you go and kind of rinse them off in the sink, you can try to get some of those strings out from in between the seeds and get some nice clean seed. And so if you guys have a sink right there, you can go and do that right now. If you're in your kitchen and nearby, you can run some water in there.
What do we have to do?
If you've got a what's called a colander with some holes in it, and you can run water through it in your sink, or if you have a dish like you do, you could run some water in there, and then you can kind of mix it around and try to pull the strings off. If you add a little bit of water to it, it's gonna make it a little bit easier for you to pull those off. And so you can go and do that, but you won't want to let it sit in water for too long after you get them pulled off.
Okay.
I'm too soon carving my pumpkin.
Okay. Yeah, and if you're gonna carve your pumpkin too, I forgot to mention that, you could also cut the top open in a circle, like if you were gonna be carving your pumpkin too, but then you'd have to reach all the way in there and pull the seeds out, or get like a big long wooden spoon or something like that to do it. But yeah, Britta, that looks good. You can, even if you cut it this sideways, you can still do some kind of carving if you want to. That's always fun. All right, I've got used an acorn squash. Yep, that works. That works just fine. They're all pretty much a similar thing. So, yeah, any kind of squash or pumpkin or gourd is going to be similar to what we're looking at today. All right, so after you've done some rinsing, then you're going to have some seeds that need to be dried. Okay, so that's going to be the next step after you've done rinsing, and you can lay them out on a towel, or if you've got some kind of a screen you can use too. I really like to use screens. So if you got like an old window screen that's kind of busted up, maybe one that you replaced or something like that, that's what I've got here, and I'll kind of show you. You can see I've got just an old window screen with a towel sitting underneath it on my table here. And then I've got some of my seeds that I pulled out earlier that I rinsed off and I laid out on the screen here. And
So you said you could do it with a broken screen?
Yeah. So this is just an old window screen from my house that broke. One of my kids leaned on it and it busted. So I just taped up the corners and I got a new screen, but I kept it because I use it for drying seed on. They're real handy for that because you can get airflow from the top and the bottom, and the seeds dry out a little bit nicer that way. And if you got a whole bunch of seed,
what else would it be good to use if you don't have a broken screen?
Even just a towel is fine. Yep. I can see I got a towel underneath the screen here, just to catch the water and stuff like that.
Okay.
So a paper towel, Nick, would work as well?
Yeah, paper towel will work too. You might get some stuff with a paper towel. You might get some stuff stuck to the seed or something like that when it dries, but generally that's okay. It's probably not going to hurt anything when you plant it back if you've got some paper stuck to it or anything like that. As long as it's not enveloping the whole seed or something like that, you'll be fine. So
Nick, we've got another question from the chat. Can you do the same with any seed like green beans?
Green beans are something different. What you'd have to do with green beans actually is you'd have to let the plant mature totally, and then you'd have to let the beans basically dry inside the pods on the plant. So the seed that you see in green beans when you eat them is not mature and viable yet. But if you let the plant grow out until it dries, and then you'll have dry beans inside the pods, and then you'll be able to pick the relatively dry pods off. And then you probably want to, but they're probably maybe not totally dry yet. You can sort of let the beans dry out a little bit further inside the pods, and then you'll be able to crack them open and harvest the mature bean seed out of there. So it's similar to like soybeans you see in the field, right? The farmers let them grow until they're dried, dead, and brown, right? And super brittle, and then they combine them, and then all the beans break out of the pods. Green beans.
We have a lot of farmers that live by us.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at? Are you down in the southern part of the state, or?
I live in Harris.
Okay.
Up in North Branch, just a little norther than that.
Okay. Sure. So yeah, a lot of crops, field crops over in that area. So you'll see that. All right. Any other questions about pumpkin seed or any other kind of seed for that matter?
Facts about squash seeds.
Facts about squash seeds. Just some random facts about squash seeds?
Yeah, random facts about squash seeds.
All right. Well, you can eat them too, right? If you don't want to save them to plant, you can roast them in the oven. Has anybody eaten squash and pumpkin seeds?
I don't know if I'm eating them.
Okay. Well, like I said, there's hundreds of seeds inside of one pumpkin. So you can save like 25 or 30 of them to plant, and you'll have more pumpkins than you can use next year. And the other 500 of them you could roast in the oven and eat them.
I'm going to cut this cucumber to see what it looks like inside. This came from our garden.
Okay.
Nick, there was a comment or a question in the chat about the best way to toast the seeds.
Best way to toast them is, well, you could put a little bit of salt on them. I like to have them salted just a little bit. If you don't want to sprinkle salt on the top, you can actually soak them in salt water first. And you do actually want to soak them in some water for a little while.
This is what they look like cutted.
Okay. Yeah, the seed is probably not quite mature in that cucumber there. So, but if you roast those pumpkin seeds, if you soak them in some water for a while, you can soak them in some salt water. They'll absorb the salt inside, and then they'll be pretty tasty. You can put them in the oven just at a really low temperature, like 150, 200 degrees or something like that, and you can just roast them on a tray in the like a cookie sheet in the oven for just a little while until they're nice and crispy. So,
Nick, we've got another great question here, and kind of segues into our next step is, how do you store these over winter?
Store them over winter. So after they're dry, you'll want to put them, if you make sure they're good and dry, you'll want to put them in some kind of a envelope or something like that. Make sure you label what they are so that you remember in the spring what it is and what variety it is even. And then you'll want to store it in a cool, dry place somewhere in your house, and preferably even in a dark place as well, so that they're not getting
like in a pantry.
Light. Yep, in a pantry works great. Yep. So an envelope or
we have
a
3
jar
pantries.
in the pantry is perfect.
And then Nick, the next question is, do we start them indoors in the spring or outside?
I always start mine outside. Some people will start their pumpkins and squash indoors, and you can do that, but I always just direct seed them. I've never actually started them indoors before. I always direct seed, and it works great. So one less thing that I have to take care of inside the house. All right, one more question from Britta there.
I was just wondering if I could tell you the name of my pumpkin.
Sure, go ahead.
This is Bigfoot. I grew him from seed.
Nice.
Mhm.
Do you
But
know
I'm
what
not
kind
gonna
of
cut him
pumpkin it
open.
is? No, not yet. Do you know what kind of pumpkin it is?
Yes, it's a Connecticut field pumpkin.
Okay. Was that your biggest, nicest pumpkin this year?
Mhm. And then I also have 3 others of the same kind.
All right.
It weighs
Well,
like 23 pounds.
nice. Well, if you want some more big pumpkins next year, you're going to have to cut him open at some point and take the seed
Yeah.
out, right?
I think I'm either gonna carve him into Harry Potter or a cat. Haven't decided yet.
All right.
Well, we want pictures of that. Whatever you carve it, you got to share the pictures with us. Nick, maybe we should move into our guest speakers.
All right. So yeah, I'm gonna introduce the guest speaker. It's actually my mom and dad. I grew up on a vegetable seed farm over in North Dakota, and they're in the process of harvesting pumpkins out in the field right now. So they actually grow some for seed, and they sell them in garden packs. So they grow large amounts of pumpkins just for seed and other vegetables as well. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and they'll let you in on a live look on harvesting some pumpkin seed on a bigger scale. So, all right, Mom, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? So I'm Teresa, and this is Dan. So we're Nick's mom and dad. And Nick, thanks for having us. So we are out in our pumpkin patch right now. And today is our first day of pumpkin seed harvest. And I'm gonna flip the camera here and show you our pumpkin patch. So this is what our pumpkin patch looks like.
That's a big pumpkin patch.
It is a very big pumpkin patch. So I was just asking Dan, so we planted 8 rows of pumpkins, and they were planted about 17 inches apart, and we had 1,600 row feet of pumpkins. So there's quite a few that are in the shadows now, but yeah, you can see there's a lot of pumpkins out there. So we're going to show you how we harvest our seed. And the first step of the process actually happened, well, besides growing the pumpkins, the first step of the process was that 2 weeks ago, we cut all these pumpkins off the vine. So we snipped the stems and cut them off the vine. And the next step is to select stock seed from this pumpkin patch. And what I mean by that is that we're selecting the very best pumpkins. We walk across, we scout the entire patch for the best looking pumpkins, and those are the ones that we select for what we call our stock seed. So I'm gonna see if I can zoom in here a little bit. So these pumpkins that are in the forefront, there's 24 of them there. We selected those especially because we liked the diversity of shapes, the size, the bright orange color, and we also look for very strong stems on the pumpkin. So the stem has to be big so you can easily grab the pumpkin, and it has to be able to hold the weight of the pumpkin. So we're looking for strong stems. So we went through the entire patch, selected these pumpkins here, and these are the pumpkins that we're going to harvest today. So we harvest the seed out of the stock seed pumpkins, and we save those and set those aside. And those are the seeds that we plant the next year. And so by doing that selection work every single year, you maintain the traits that you're looking for in your pumpkins. And for us, it's a bright orange color, the strong handles and stems, and a diversity of sizes and shapes. So the first thing that we have to do is cut open the pumpkins, just exactly what you guys did. But the challenge is that we have a lot of pumpkins to cut, and also they're very large. And so we had to devise a special tool to cut those open. So Dan's gonna show you our homemade pumpkin cutter and how we actually use this pumpkin cutter. So he's gonna slice each of those pumpkins across the middle and about right through the equator so that each of the sides of the pumpkin are about even. And then what we actually do is we go in and vacuum the seed out of the inside of those pumpkins. We can't sit and scoop the seed out individually of each one of those pumpkins. It would just take us far too long. So we actually use vacuum cleaners. So they're shop vacs. This is our little shop vac, but then we also have a very large shop vac that is in a 55-gallon drum barrel, as you see there on the tractor. And we don't have electricity out here in the field, so we have to use a gas-powered generator. So I hope you can hear me above the noise of the generator. So Dan is gonna actually show you how we vacuum the seed out of these pumpkins. So it goes a lot faster than scooping those seeds out by hand.
That's cool.
So we get a lot of practice every year vacuuming seed out of pumpkins.
It's like someone slurping up spaghetti.
Not really.
Dan, can you? So I'm going to show you the inside of the vacuum here. That's what it looks like. So we do get some pulp with the seed.
That's
but
a lot
you
of
can see what the
seeds.
pumpkin seed looks like. So we fill this vacuum several times, and also that 55-gallon drum vacuum. And then we actually, after we've harvested all of that seed, we then take it up to the farm and we wash all the seed just like you guys did. Only we don't take it to the kitchen sink. We run it over screens, and we have a hose with a spray nozzle. So the pulp goes through the screen and the seeds stay on the screen so that all the wastewater runs off and away. And then we take all of those pumpkin seeds and we spread them out on screens, very similar to Nick's window screen, only these are screens that we've built. They're huge racks, so we have like about 10 feet of screen, about 4 feet wide, 10 feet long, that we spread all the seed out on. And we run fans over the screens to dry the seed very quickly. And as it's drying, we have to go in and stir the seed every once in a while to make sure that the seeds don't stick to each other. Otherwise, they'll dry in a big clump. So as you're drying your seed, make sure they're spread apart and not sticking to each other, or you'll have big clumps of seed. So then after we're done drying them on the screens, we scoop them all up and then we haul them into the greenhouse to dry completely for actual storage. Because the seed, like Nick was saying, the seed has to be completely dry in order to store over the winter as you wait for the next season. So I'm going to show you the finished product here. this is, I'm going to turn my camera around again. So this is the finished product, the actual seed after it's dried. And here's the actual packet that we put our seed into when we send it to the gardener for them to plant. So, any questions?
What garden do you send them to? Like what store?
So we have an online website. So people order directly from us online. And we also, oops, sorry, gotta turn my camera around. And we also have seed racks that we send out to various stores. So there's a number of stores in Minnesota, especially in and around the Twin Cities. Most of them are food co-op stores that we have our seed racks in. So, and we also have some seed at the seed library. Where is that seed library at, Nick? Thin River, I think.
In Pine River in my county,
Pine
we set up a seed library, and they donate some seed to that every year. So,
Teresa and Dan, thank you. This was really fun to watch you do this. There's a couple of questions in the
What country
chat.
do you guys live in?
We live in North Dakota, so just in the state next door.
Oh, North Dakota.
Yep, North Dakota.
Teresa, there's a question. Do you protect them from frost?
No, actually, this patch.
That's a weird question.
This patch did have some frost, and so that is what is responsible for having killed off the vines. You can see, you know, the vines, there's still some green leaves there, but for the most part, the leaves all died out with the frost. So then the canopy really opens up and you can see how many pumpkins are under there. So, yeah, we actually welcome the frost because otherwise these vines would still be growing and green and we'd be tripping over them trying to harvest the pumpkins. So frost is a good thing.
We have another question here, Teresa, in the chat. Do you need to pick your best pumpkins for the seed?
So the stock seed, the seed that we plant back next year, is the special selection. So we harvest those pumpkins first to make sure we're selecting the very best, also to keep that seed separate. But the rest of the seed, we harvest all the rest of the seed to put in our packets and to sell to other seed companies. So we actually have a contract with another garden seed company to produce this seed for them. How many pounds are they? So we're producing 150 pounds of pumpkin seed for them, and then also for our own packets.
We've got another question here. Do the wildlife eat your pumpkins?
That's a great question. I don't know if you can see it here. I'm going to pan to the side here to see if you can see. We actually have the entire plot fenced with deer fence. So can you see the fence posts in the distance there? The entire plot is fenced. We have to keep the deer out. And you can see next to the pumpkins is some sweet corn that we grew for seed. And yeah, we have deer that would love to get in here and just graze our seed plots. So obviously we don't let them in.
The questions keep coming in here, Teresa. Do they continue to ripen after a frost?
Yes, actually, remember at the very beginning I told you the first step was to cut the pumpkins off the vine. And when you do that, that triggers an after ripening process. So the pumpkins actually put a lot of energy into completely ripening up that nice plump pumpkin seed once it's cut off the vines. So it's kind of like, we wouldn't have to cut the vines off if the vines were completely decimated by a frost. If the vines were completely dead, that would also trigger that after ripening process. But we don't want to wait for the snow to be flying to be out here harvesting ripe
How much
pumpkin
longer
seeds.
does the meeting go for?
Does anybody have an answer to that question?
Yeah, I was going to let you finish your answer first, and then I'll address that question.
Okay. Yep. I'm done.
All right, great. Thank you, Teresa and Dan. This is very interesting, and I want to thank you for taking your time and showing us how you do this process. That was great. So virtual applause. If you've got your turn your cameras on, give an applause for the Podos for taking time out and showing us their process today. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having us.
My dog also says thanks.
You're getting a lot of thanks from all over the place.
And she just leaves.
All right, so
well,
just
have fun with your seed saving projects.
thanks again, Teresa and Dan.
You're
Just
welcome.
a couple wrap up things here for all of you, and then our time will be done. So we will be sending weekly challenges. So after today, those of you that have participated, you'll be getting an email weekly from us with a challenge. So hopefully you'll see that and be able to participate. Again, we're asking you that if you do something, please send us a picture of you doing that activity, that type of thing. So wrap back with us after you've done some activities and share a picture or two with us. That'd be great. And you'll also be getting a packet of seeds for attending our Zoom meetings. So the more Zoom meetings that you attend, the more seeds we'll be sending you. So watch in the mail in the next week or so for a packet of seeds coming your way for attending our Zoom meeting today. And don't forget that we're doing, like I said, the challenges. So you'll be getting challenges weekly here. And we will be having another Zoom experience in November. So watch for that, sign up for that. That's our next activity around soil. So Becca will be doing a soil activity with us in November. So be prepared to attend with us in November. Becca and Nick, any kind of parting thoughts before we let them go for today and to celebrate National 4-H Week?
Before we stop, when's the next meeting?
So that is in November. Let me get the date here quick.
I believe it is November 2nd.
Ooh, you're quick, Becca. Becca's quicker than I am today. It's November 2nd at 4 o'clock.
I think that covers it for me, Brian.
Nick,
Yep,
any
thanks,
parting
guys,
thoughts?
for coming. Thanks for coming, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that, the activity and checking in on the farm that I grew up on.
So at
It's
first,
a lot of fun for me to show you guys.
I didn't even know what we were doing, and I just carved just like a little face inside of this.
That's very artistic.
I created these. This one you could use it as an earmuff.
You surely can. All right, well,
Need to
thanks
do some
everyone for joining us
reinforcement on
today. It was great seeing you all, and I think next time we'll also have you have your cameras on so we can see you. So enjoy the day, enjoy the next week, and watch for the packets of seeds coming in the mail and our weekly challenges. So we'll see you next time.
What are weekly challenges?
You'll have to wait and see. They'll come email, and there'll be something different every week.
I wanted to say that I asked what they did if the vines weren't killed by the frost, or if frost didn't come. I never got answered.
Nick, can you
I
tackle
can answer
that one?
that for you. So she kind of covered that one at the end. There was kind of two. Your question was just similar. If you can wait till the reason we cut it off the vine is to trigger that after ripening process in the pumpkin. So if a frost doesn't come, if we cut it off the vine, it basically is like a frost almost. We're creating an artificial one in the mind of the pumpkin, right? So if the frost comes later, the same process would happen, but then like she said, we'd be out there when the snow is flying in North Dakota, trying to harvest those pumpkins, which makes it you know, a lot harder. So we cut it off the vine to kind of trigger that process and get started a little bit earlier. So.